Nobody noticed the translator sitting quietly in the corner of the courtroom until the defendant whispered something that wasn't meant to be understood. Marcus Wellington had known the power of words for 30 years, first as a code breaker for the CIA, then as a translator at Boston Courthouse. Today, he was 58, his gray hair neatly combed, glasses slipping down his nose. Like everyone else in the courtroom, he was part of the routine, invisible, silent, and completely insignificant. Or so they thought. The case seemed ordinary. A Russian businessman named Viktor Kozlov facing tax evasion charges. Prosecutor Michael Chen was presenting evidence. Defense attorney Sarah Rodriguez making objections. Judge Jennifer Barnes impatiently waiting for proceedings to conclude. Marcus sat at his small table, occasionally handling translation requests. Kozlov's English was good, but he struggled with legal terms. Marcus provided simple translations for him, remaining invisible as always. At 3 in the afternoon, something changed. Kozlov's lawyer whispered something to him, and the Russian businessman suddenly tensed. Marcus noticed this because he'd spent 25 years learning to read people's micro-expressions. Kozlov's shoulders straightened slightly, his breathing quickened. His fingers began tapping an uncertain rhythm on the table. These were stress indicators Marcus had learned during his CIA days. Then Kozlov turned his head and looked at the spectators in the courtroom. His eyes met Marcus's for a moment. The Russian businessman studied him for a few seconds, then looked away. But Marcus had seen something in that look, a sign of recognition. He'd seen this before, too. That momentary surprise when someone recognized you, followed by the calculation process. Kozlov continued with the hearing, but now he was acting differently. He was answering questions more carefully, choosing his words more deliberately. Marcus was now fully focused on him. There was something he'd learned years ago during missions in Eastern Europe. When people got nervous, they reverted to their native languages. And when speaking in their native tongue, especially when saying secret things, they used certain patterns. Around 4 o'clock, Kozlov's lawyer requested a brief recess for his client. Judge Barnes called a 15-minute break. As Marcus gathered his books, Kozlov stood up and headed to the spectator section to talk with his associates. Marcus didn't look up, but kept his ears alert. CIA training had taught him to catch whispers from 20 meters away. At first, he just heard normal Russian conversation. Kozlov was telling his associate about his concerns regarding the case. But then the tone changed. He began speaking lower, more carefully, and Marcus froze. Because Kozlov was no longer speaking standard Russian, he was using a special code from the Soviet era, embedding GRU code words into everyday conversation. Marcus had learned this code 25 years ago. Despite the Cold War being over, some former KGB and GRU agents still used this language. Kozlov was now saying something that meant package delivery scheduled for Tuesday. But the term package here was a metalinguistic expression. It actually meant suitcase bomb. Marcus's heart began to race. Kozlov continued speaking, and Marcus understood every word. Tuesday actually meant federal building. Delivery meant detonation. Kozlov was telling his associate that a bomb attack was planned at the federal building, that this would be carried out on Tuesday. And Marcus was the only person hearing this conversation. The break ended, and everyone returned to their seats. Marcus's hand was trembling slightly. For 15 years, he'd only done courthouse translation. He no longer wanted to hear such secrets. But what could he do? Could he call the FBI directly? Could he say, "Hello, I'm a court translator, and I just heard some Russian code language"? Who would believe him? The hearing continued, but Marcus could no longer concentrate. He was watching Kozlov. The Russian businessman now appeared calm, acting as if nothing had happened. But Marcus knew he was performing. His 25 years of experience told him so. At 5:30, the hearing was adjourned. It would continue the next day. As Marcus gathered his things, Kozlov passed by him. The Russian businessman looked at him and smiled. "Thank you for the translation," he said in English. But there was a different message in his eyes. Marcus understood this was a warning. It meant, forget what you heard. Marcus left the courthouse and headed to his car. His mind was confused. He didn't know what to do. His home was in Beacon Hill, a 20-minute drive. He needed to make a decision during this time. Should he go to the FBI? What if he was wrong? What if Kozlov really wasn't using code and Marcus was becoming paranoid? But then his old training kicked in. There was a rule he'd learned at the CIA. When in doubt, err on the side of safety. Marcus pulled out his iPhone and called the FBI Boston office number. "Hello, could I speak with Agent Sarah Mitchell? This is Marcus Wellington, former CIA operative. There's an urgent situation." While waiting on the phone, he looked in the mirror. For 15 years, he'd lived a normal life. He and his wife, Linda, were preparing for a quiet retirement. Their 2 children were in college. He was no longer in the world of international conspiracies, code languages, secret operations, or so he thought. Agent Mitchell answered the phone. "Marcus, is that you? What happened?" He'd known Sarah Mitchell years ago. Back then she was a young FBI agent, and Marcus had just left the CIA. They'd worked together on a few joint operations. Sarah respected Marcus and trusted his word. "Sarah, I heard something at the courthouse. Old GRU code. A bomb attack is being planned at the federal building, Tuesday." Silence. Then Sarah's voice. "Are you sure?" "I'm not 100% certain, but we can't take the risk. There's a defendant named Viktor Kozlov. Tax evasion case. But this man might actually be more dangerous." "Okay, I'm coming right away. Where are you?" Marcus gave her his location. Sarah would be there in 20 minutes. Marcus sat in his car waiting. Old times were passing through his mind. Nights spent in Prague, safe houses in Berlin, that night near Moscow when he almost got caught. He'd left all of that behind, but the past had returned. When Sarah arrived, Marcus told her everything. What Kozlov had said, the code words, the implied attack plan. Sarah took notes and made several phone calls. An hour later, FBI teams came to take Marcus's statement. "Marcus, this information is very valuable, but we can't use it as evidence. We can't say it in court because you obtained this information illegally." "I know, but we can prevent the attack, right?" "We hope so. We'll monitor Kozlov more closely. Phone taps, physical surveillance. If he's really planning something, we'll catch him." Marcus went home but couldn't sleep. Linda was asking her husband what was happening, but he couldn't explain. How could he explain? Could he say, "Honey, today my old professional skills kicked in, and I heard a bomb attack plan for the federal building"? The next day, Tuesday, Marcus went to court. Kozlov was there, appearing calm and confident as always, but Marcus now saw him with different eyes. This man was a terrorist, or could be. During the hearing, Marcus's phone vibrated. Message from Sarah. "Security increased at federal building. Suspicious activity detected. Good job, Marcus." During the lunch break, Kozlov again talked with his associates. This time, Marcus was prepared with a recording device. The small device the FBI had given him was hidden in his jacket pocket. Kozlov used the code language again, but this time he said something different. "Plan canceled. Too much heat." The term "too much heat" meant police surveillance. Marcus was relieved. The attack seemed to have been prevented. But then Kozlov said something else. "Alternative route necessary. Package rerouted to Station 7. Marcus froze. Station 7 referred to South Station, Boston's main train station. The attack hadn't been canceled, just relocated. Marcus immediately texted Sarah. FBI teams headed to South Station. At 4 o'clock, one of Kozlov's men was caught at the train station with a suspicious bag. There really was a bomb inside. When the hearing ended, Kozlov was taken into custody, this time not just for tax evasion, but on terrorism charges. As Marcus left the courthouse, he spoke with FBI agents. "How did you know these codes?" asked a young agent. Marcus smiled. "Old habits die hard. When I learned these codes 25 years ago, I never thought they'd come in handy someday." "Are you thinking of returning to the CIA?" Marcus shook his head. "No, I'm happy being a translator. But sometimes the past finds us, doesn't it?" That evening when he returned home, Linda was waiting for him at the door. "Marcus, what happened today? FBI agents were here." Marcus sat down with his wife and told her everything. Linda was first surprised, then scared, finally proud. "You became a hero, Marcus." "No," said Marcus. "I just did my job. I translated words. Only this time, those words saved lives." Throughout the weekend, the media followed the story. It was reported that a terrorist attack in Boston had been prevented, that an anonymous tip had alerted security forces. Marcus's name wasn't mentioned anywhere. That's how he wanted it. Monday morning, he returned to court. There was a new case, new defendants, new translation requests. Marcus sat at his small table, arranged his books, placed his glasses on the tip of his nose. Nobody noticed him. Invisible, silent, and completely insignificant. Or so it appeared. But Marcus now knew that sometimes the most important work was done in the quietest corners. Sometimes the power of words could save lives, and sometimes the past could return unexpectedly, giving you a second chance. The weeks following the Kozlov incident brought unexpected changes to Marcus's life. The FBI wanted to keep him on retainer as a linguistic consultant. Sarah Mitchell called regularly with coded intercepts that needed analysis. Marcus found himself drawn back into a world he thought he'd left forever. One Thursday morning, while reviewing a case about international art theft, Marcus received an encrypted email. The sender was listed simply as Control. His hands froze over the keyboard. He hadn't seen that designation in 15 years. The message was brief. "Retirement doesn't suit you. Package arriving tomorrow. Yellow House Protocol." Marcus's blood ran cold. Yellow House was a CIA safe house designation he'd used in Prague. Someone from his past was reaching out, and they knew exactly how to find him. The next morning, Marcus arrived at court to find a new case on his docket. International smuggling charges against a woman named Elena Vasquez. As she entered the courtroom, Marcus's breath caught. She was older now, graying at the temples, but he recognized her immediately. Agent Elena Martinez from Operation Thunder Bay, 1998. They'd worked together to expose a weapons trafficking ring in South America. Elena's eyes found his across the courtroom. A slight nod confirmed his suspicion. She was undercover, and this trial was her cover. But for what operation? During the morning recess, Elena approached his desk. "Excuse me, do you speak Spanish? I need help understanding some legal terms." Her voice was steady, professional, but her eyes conveyed urgency. "Yes, I can help," Marcus replied, his own voice carefully neutral. As he translated seemingly innocent legal phrases, Elena whispered additional words in a dialect of Spanish he recognized from their old operations. She was telling him about a new threat, a network of former Soviet scientists selling chemical weapons to domestic terrorists. The trial was a cover to get close to their American contact, someone in the courthouse itself. Marcus's heart raced. Another conspiracy, another threat to uncover. But this time, he wasn't a passive observer. Elena needed his help to identify the contact. Over the next 3 days, Marcus carefully observed everyone in the courthouse: clerks, bailiffs, other lawyers, even judges. He noted communication patterns, unusual behaviors, suspicious conversations. On Wednesday, he found what Elena was looking for. Judge Patricia Winfield was receiving coded text messages during court proceedings. Marcus recognized the pattern: numerical sequences that corresponded to old KGB communication protocols. The judge was the contact. That evening, Marcus met Elena at a coffee shop in Cambridge. "Judge Winfield," he said simply. Elena nodded grimly. "We suspected, but needed confirmation. She's been using her position to provide legal protection for the network. Cases dismissed on technicalities, evidence ruled inadmissible, witnesses discredited. What's the plan?" "We need to catch her in the act. Tomorrow's hearing involves one of their operatives, a chemist named Dmitry Volkov. We believe Winfield will attempt to throw the case. We need you to document everything, record her communications if possible." Marcus felt the familiar surge of adrenaline he'd known during his CIA days. "I'll need equipment." "Already arranged. There's a package in your car. Everything you need." The next morning, Marcus arrived early and set up the surveillance equipment Elena had provided. Miniature cameras, recording devices, signal interceptors, technology far advanced from what he'd used years ago. The Volkov hearing began at 9. As Marcus had predicted, Judge Winfield began making questionable rulings almost immediately. Evidence was excluded, witness testimony was limited, and the prosecution's case was systematically dismantled. But Marcus was recording everything. More importantly, he intercepted several encrypted messages between Winfield and unknown parties. The codes were sophisticated, but Marcus had always been good with patterns. During a brief recess, he managed to decode one message: "Asset compromised. Initiate Protocol 7. Eliminate observers." Marcus's blood turned to ice. They knew about the surveillance. Worse, eliminate observers likely meant him and Elena. He quickly texted Elena, "Blown. Protocol 7. Get out." But as he looked around the courtroom, he realized leaving wouldn't be that simple. 2 men in the gallery had positioned themselves near the exits. They weren't court personnel, and their positioning was too strategic to be coincidental. Marcus made a decision that would have seemed impossible a month ago. He stood up, cleared his throat, and spoke loudly enough for the entire courtroom to hear. "Your Honor, I need to report a security breach." The courtroom fell silent. Judge Winfield's face went pale. "Excuse me? I've been monitoring coded communications in this courtroom as part of an ongoing federal investigation. Judge Winfield, you're under surveillance for suspected conspiracy and treason." Chaos erupted. The 2 men in the gallery reached for concealed weapons, but FBI agents, Elena's backup team, were already moving. Within seconds, the courtroom became a battlefield of federal agents, suspected operatives, and confused civilians. Marcus dove behind his desk as gunshots rang out. Through the chaos, he saw Elena take down one of the armed men while FBI agents subdued others. Judge Winfield tried to flee through her chambers, but was quickly apprehended. When the shooting stopped, Marcus emerged to find Elena standing over the evidence he'd collected. "You just blew up a 2-year investigation," she said, but she was smiling. "Did we get them all?" "The important ones. Winfield, Volkov, their communications network, plus enough evidence to unravel the entire operation." Later, as Marcus gave his statement to federal investigators, Sarah Mitchell found him in the courthouse lobby. "You know this makes you a target," she said. "These networks don't forget. They don't forgive." Marcus considered this. For 15 years, he'd lived quietly, invisibly. Now he was back in the world of shadows and threats. But he'd also helped prevent chemical weapons from reaching domestic terrorists. "Maybe it's time to stop hiding," he said finally. 6 months later, Marcus Wellington officially returned to active consultation for multiple federal agencies. His business card read simply, linguistic analysis, and cultural intelligence. But those who needed to know understood what that really meant. He still translated for the courthouse occasionally, but now it was often part of larger operations. His keen ear for languages, his ability to recognize patterns and codes, his understanding of how criminals and terrorists communicated, these skills were too valuable to waste in retirement. On quiet evenings at home, Linda would ask if he missed the simplicity of being just a translator. Every day, Marcus would answer honestly. But some people are meant for simple lives, and others are meant to stand guard. I've learned which one I am. The phone would ring. Sarah with a new intercept, Elena with a suspicious conversation, the CIA with a coded transmission that needed analysis. And Marcus would answer, because in a world full of threats, someone had to listen for the dangerous words hidden in plain sight. Marcus Wellington is just a translator. But in the right hands, words are the most powerful weapons of all. And sometimes, the most important battles are fought not with guns or bombs, but with the quiet courage to hear what others cannot and speak what others will not. And that's more than enough. What an incredible story of hidden heroism. Marcus Wellington proves that extraordinary people walk among us every day, often in the most unexpected places. Subscribe to One Human, One Story for more incredible tales of ordinary Americans with extraordinary secrets. Like this video if Marcus's quick thinking impressed you. Have you ever encountered someone who turned out to be completely different than they appeared? Share your story. Share this video with someone who loves stories about unsung heroes. What's your take? Do you think there are more people like Marcus around us? Quiet heroes with classified pasts just waiting for the right moment to act? From which city in the world are you watching this video today? Let us know in the comments. We love connecting with our global audience. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss our weekly stories of One Human, One Story.